Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is another in my practice session series for the Red Hat EX374 exam, Red Hat Certified Specialist in Developing Automation with Ansible Automation Platform. Before I dive in, I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, click the subscribe button and ring the bell when you do. Also, if you enjoy the video or find it useful, make sure you click like. As a reminder, these are my practice sessions for the exam, so I'm going through the objectives and trying to talk about them and maybe do some examples of the objective. And during the video, I'll be assessing myself, and I'll do an assessment at the end. And hopefully I will determine that I feel pretty confident about whatever the objective is. And therefore, if I come upon tasks in the exam about the objective, I'll be able to handle that pretty well. If not, then I have just under 2 weeks to do some final preparations and fill in some knowledge gaps and such. And hopefully there won't be too many objectives that I'm at that point with, but I still have some time to make sure I'm prepared for the exam. These videos are not intended to be tutorials, nor are they intended to be training materials. I do try to have the information accurate because I'm preparing for the exam and I want to hopefully have learned accurate information. But just understand that I'm learning right along with you, and these should not be considered, authoritative tutorials. So I'm going to move into the managed content collections part of the objectives, and I think I should be able to cover all this in a single video because they're quite related to one another. We'll be creating a content collection, installing a content collection, and publishing a content collection. And just a note on content collections, this is something that I can't remember the version of Ansible. I think it was the version once they did the split from having the all-encompassing Ansible package being the way to do it versus going into the Ansible core model where you're adding your collections, which frankly I think was the right move by Ansible because it was just getting to where it's kind of unwieldy for them. And a collection is going to be a group of either roles, modules, plugins, by lookup plugins like lookup plugins and filters and such, or all of the above that's put together. Even the stuff built into Ansible is a part of a collection, Ansible.builtin. In my own work, I use Community General a good bit. The Ansible POSIX collection has some stuff, particularly about storage that I use. And one of the things we have to be able to do is create these collections. All collections will have a namespace of some kind. That's where this Ansible.builtin comes from. That's from the Ansible namespace. You have the community namespace, and within that community general, there's community lots of things. I think there's community VMware that I've used before, and there are other providers that have namespaces. There's a Red Hat namespace. There's some collections that are officially maintained by Red Hat. So let's go to the terminal. Let me clear my screen here. That may be a new repository for testing collections that right now just has some of my basic configuration stuff. So to create a collection, we're going to be using Ansible Galaxy, and we're going to first define we are going to feed Ansible Galaxy a namespace that we want to use, and it is going to return to us the folder structure that is going to be needed for the collection. So we'll just do this in the root of our directory here, Ansible Galaxy collection init, and then the namespace that we want to use. And for this, I'm going to do, we're going to call it EX374.practice. It will tell us it made that collection successfully. So we now have a directory, EX374. And within this directory, we have practice. And we have something similar to what you have if you were to make a role with Ansible Galaxy. Doing the Ansible Galaxy role in it gives you the skeleton of what you have with your collection. And you can update these things as needed. The galaxy.yml is pretty important for this, especially if you are going to put this into or share this collection with others. Part of this, I'm going to upload it to the private automation hub, and some of this information will be useful to have. not going to go through all of the things here. I am going to change the description so that way we can easily identify what we've done later on in the video. So I'm going to call it my test collection. You can give it a version number, tell it where the README file is, all that good stuff. I want to talk about dependencies. So just like with roles, you can your collection might require other things to be there. Let's say that you're doing you've made a collection that also makes use of Ansible POSIX. It uses some of the modules with that within its own tasks and such. So you'd want to list that as a dependency. One gotcha I can tell you about as I've practiced this is expecting a dictionary. I always think it's going to be a list, and then when I try to create my collection, stuff goes wrong. So the curly braces here are just a placeholder for the fact there is nothing. Even though I don't actually need these things, I'm going to just say their dependencies just for the sake of doing this exercise. So Ansible POSIX, we'll say that collection is a dependency. We'll also say community general is a dependency. Now, for data about your collection, if you want, you can fill in all this information about homepage issues, all that good stuff. So we're going to save this. If there are particular Python modules that your collection needs, I'm not exactly sure how those will be brought in with dependencies. I know that for some of the collections I use for my job, basically I have a task that reads a requirements file that also will pull in the Python bits needed from pip. But if you need to do that, you can make a requirements.txt file just in the root of we're in EX374 Practice. I'm going to create it here, and just say IP adder. I know that was from a previous video. I can't think of any others off the top of my head. But this will be here that if someone were to use your collection, they can use that requirements.txt to pull in whatever Python stuff is needed. Obviously, we're not going to need that, but just telling you how this works. To give our collection a thing to do, we're going to actually create a role, but I want to show you what's in the plugins directory. And right now there's a README file for that. If you were to make a module, then you will need, or rather if your collection that you're creating is going to have a module, you will need to make a subdirectory of modules within plugins, and then put whatever your Python scripts that you create for your modules. Otherwise, lookup plugins and things like that can just be in the root of plugins, but modules have to have their own thing. We're going to go into, not VI, CD into roles. There's nothing in here, obviously, so we'll do Ansible Galaxy role in it, and the name of this role is just going to be hello. And this should look familiar to you as far as LSLR. I guess I could do tree. I know a lot of people like the tree command. We see everything that's in hello. And if you've been through the RHCE exam, you have a basic understanding of all the stuff that's in this. But we're going to go into hello tasks main, and the main task for this is simply going to be, it's going to run Ansible debug and just say hello. The idea of fully qualified module names and such, this is where this comes from, because this is, Ansible namespace, built-in collection, debug module that we're using for this. And we're just going to say message hello from the role. Now at this point, we're technically done as far as, as far as the bits that we need to create to be able to make a role, we are done. There's one thing I do want to mention, and that is this meta directory. If I were to go into meta, it'll have a runtime.yml file. And if you are going to upload this collection, I know this is true for a private automation hub. I would imagine this will be true if you're uploading to like key.io or anywhere else where you're contributing your collection. You're going to have this file. Maybe not all the stuff that's in it, but this file is going to need to exist. one thing I found curious with my own practice here is that the meta directory is made. In some of my other training materials and other labs that I did for my training, the meta directory was not made and I had to make it. So, but perhaps the actual default of Ansible Galaxy collection in it is to make the meta thing, but just know that this is a thing that needs to be there if you're going to upload this. And the big thing that you would put in here, if you needed to require a particular version of Ansible, this is where you would define that. Also, notice that the greater than equal, that's within quotation marks. I think that has to be that way. There's other aspects of this. I have not dove into it. I might give them some cursory looks, but otherwise, I think the big thing to know is that this is where you would define the minimum version of Ansible that your collection is going to need. So at this point, we have made all of the stuff. Now we're actually going to build the collection, which is effectively going to be a tar gzipped archive. So we'll do Ansible Galaxy collection build. That will spit us out a tar archive, and do tar tf, and notice that it is literally a tar archive of everything that was in here, and thus we have our collection. So let's go back to the objectives real quick. Create a content collection. Check. We have done that. I would consider that a pass. Now we have to install it. There's a couple of ways of doing this. The truly manual way is you will use Ansible Galaxy and you will feed it this tar archive. Now, a couple of things. I have not defined where my collections are going to be just yet. By default, I think it goes to my user directory .ansible, then collections, and it feeds it there. That's typically not where I keep my collections. I will usually have them in whatever the repo is for my Ansible project. So I'm actually going to make a directory called collections, and I'm actually going to copy the tar file to my root directory here. We're actually going to get rid of EX374, and we're going to install this collection just from the tar archive. So if I were to do Ansible Galaxy collection install and the tar archive, what? I make a mistake. I make possibly a bug. I was expecting that to work. I think I have an idea. It might deal with my dependencies. But let's see what. That's what I was curious about, because I've asked for collections. Must have had a syntax error somewhere. Where my version starts with. It's like it's dealing with dependencies, so I must have an error there. The beauty of this, since this is a tar archive, of course, I realized what I did. Grumble. I was for some reason expecting that to go into EX374 in practice. So let's do this. One of the beauties of using Git for this. I'm going to go back to my main branch, and we are going to, of course, the files are still there. Grumble. I was hoping that would blow away my files. Well, I guess not, because I haven't. I ought to have committed them. So let's do some cleanup real quick. So we need to get rid of, let's see, docs, files.json, manifest.json, meta, plugins, requirements.txt, and roles. Okay, so let's start over with this. Ansible Galaxy collection init EX374 practice. Beauty of practice sessions does not always go as planned. So we're going to copy this tar archive into practice, and we're going to extract it. I guess it didn't extract. Well, that would make sense because all these are new files. Oh well, we can start from scratch. This won't take us too long to do. So for description, yeah, we don't have to do this, but I want to show a little bit later what occurs. So test collection. So we need to do, I might have to, do I have to give this a version? I don't think I do, but we'll put that to the test. And this will be, need that there, IP adder. I'm going to go into meta runtime. Okay, so it kept my hello roles. All right, so we're back basically to how we were, and that failed. Let me scroll up and look at this error once again. It might be the fact that, so it's the Ansible Galaxy stuff. Yeah, none type is null, so I'll bet that's what it is. I have to give, for dependencies, I have to give a version, which I don't remember doing that when I did another practice of this, but that might be the case. So we're just going to say greater than equal to 1.0.0. That tends to be the standard. If you want to include this, everything will start at 1.0.0. All right, so now Ansible Galaxy collection build. Get rid of this tar and let us copy. We're not going to blow the directories away this time in case it fails again. All right, so now let's try to install. So Ansible Galaxy collection install the tar archive. And then we're going to put this into the collections directory. That was something I actually had left off before. So let's see if this works. Yay, this is much better. Now it's complaining because we have not added this to our Ansible config. And we see where it downloaded the required collections that it needs to be able to do its thing. That's the Community General and Ansible POSIX. So if I were to do tree for collections, lots of stuff here, especially since I pulled down Community General, but let me do this. So within collections will be Ansible collections. Within Ansible collections will be everything that you would need for that. So what I am going to do in my Ansible.cfg is add collections path in the default section, and I'm just going to say .collections if I can spell. And so now if I were to do Ansible Galaxy collection list, famous last word, should, right? Well, let's take a look at this with Ansible Navigator. Config. Now to do mode interactive because I have it set to be standard out. Maybe I had an invalid value. Yeah, so collections path is not yellow, which means it hasn't been changed from defaults. So let me, collections path, I must have misspelled a key. Yep, I had one too many L's. All right, so we'll fix that spelling error. Now, Ansible Galaxy collection list, and we see our collections. Another thing we can do, go back to Ansible Navigator. Is there just a collections? I can't remember if there's just a collection thing. No. Oh, there's collections plural. Maybe if I spell interactive correctly, that will work. This does take a minute because it's reading all of your stuff, and we see listed as available the EX374 practice, and it has the hello role, and of course this is all that metadata that we didn't fill out about the role. So some nifty stuff. So that's one way of installing the collections. Another way is by using a requirements file. And before I do the requirements file, I'm actually going to publish this collection to to Private Automation Hub. So before I do that, let me rmrf collections, get rid of all the stuff that's in there, make the directory again. We're going to go into Private Automation Hub. I've already logged in before. So in order to add a collection, we need to define the namespace. And the namespace for this collection is EX374. It's going to have an owner. When I first set this up, I made a group called EX374 Practice that includes this username, and it will create the namespace. Then we can upload the collection. I guess we can do it via the CLI as well. I have not published one via the CLI. I might try that before I do the exam. I'll upload the collection. File that it's looking for is going to be our tar file. We upload, and it's going to do a couple of checks. It's going to run Ansible lint to look for syntax strangeness. It's going to complain about changelog.rst. This would be, from what I've gathered, if we were making, if I was doing this for a public thing and that people are going to use, and I'm going to maintain this collection and make improvements and such, I would have changelogs with this. But when you're just doing some examples like this, it's going to complain that it can't find the file, but it's not going to fail for you. After this, you will need to approve your collection. I kind of like this feature as far as if you're in your production environment, you have multiple people that are working within your Private Automation Hub. You want to maybe have a look at what's going on with this collection before you approve it. And so now, in the published area is your collection. You can click into that and see its roles and all that good stuff. So there's a couple of things I want to do. I want to be able to pull this down from the Automation Hub. And I also want to do those, the dependencies that it has, the Ansible POSIX and Community General. I want that to come from Automation Hub as well. So what you can do under Repository Management, let me go to Published. And for CLI configuration, click your little copy to keyboard. This is kind of a nice feature of this. I'm going to go into our Ansible config. I'm going to paste this here. So the syntax for Galaxy, for Ansible Galaxy, you're going to give it a comma-separated server list. For each server in the server list, you will need to give it some information. So I'm going to rinse repeat for community, because I know I sync the Community General stuff to my Private Automation Hub, which I would say if you're, I don't have AAP in production at work, but I would imagine if you're going to use Ansible Automation Platform, you might want to go and use Private Automation Hub, and even for external stuff like Community, you would sync that stuff to your Private Automation Hub, so that way everything in your network is going out to here versus always out to the internet. So we'll paste this in here. Now we need to get rid of this community underscore repo here, because we can only have one of the Galaxy things, and we just add to the comma separated list. And I think it searches in order of your list, so that's why it's important to do the fully qualified like collection name and module names and that kind of stuff. And then Red Hat Certified, that's going to be where Ansible POSIX is going to come from. Now, if you're not using Ansible Automation Platform, you're not going to have access to the Red Hat Certified stuff. Now, token, where you're going to get that is going to be from API Token Management within the Private Automation Hub. We'll generate ourselves a token. This will allow us to easily authenticate to be able to pull down what we need. Okay, so now that we have Ansible Galaxy configured, within collections, I'm going to make a file. This doesn't actually have to be in collections, but from what I have gathered, most people will put this here. Requirements.yml. This actually is going to be YAML. We have collections, and this actually will be a list. And what I have found with this, we do not have to specify the version with this. So we want to install EX374 Practice. I'm not going to list the others because the dependencies that we set in EX374 Practice should cover that. So we'll do Ansible Galaxy collection install -r collections requirements. And since I specified in the Ansible config the path I want my collections to go to, this should install it into that folder. But let's see what happens. No, oh yeah. So I'm using self-signed certificates, and I forgot for Ansible Galaxy, I need to do ignore. I think it's just ignore certs. So let's try this again. Man, I am failing my spelling this afternoon. Either that or something's wonky with my keyboard or my VM. This should take a moment or so. Not sure why that took as long as it did, but ultimately it was successful. I don't see any strange stuff here. And LSL collections, Ansible collections. There's our stuff. That's kind of what I expected to see in Ansible Galaxy collections install, or not install, collection list. Should have our collections there, and we can make a quick little playbook. Just run this against localhost EX374 Practice, and the name of that role we made was hello. So Ansible Navigator run foo.yml. And hopefully this will give us our little message. Yep, and hello from the role. So looking back at the objectives, we made a collection. We installed it both using the tar file and with a requirements file. And we published it, and where we published it to was the private automation hub. So I think for managing content collections and their sub-objectives, I think I'm pretty much ready for that for the exam. So hopefully you found this video useful. If you did, make sure you do click like. I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite you, if you haven't subscribed yet, to click the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when new content is made. As always, thank you for your time, and I'll see you the next time.